Hi peeps, welcome back to my channel. I am going to discuss today my MCAS because a lot of people have asked questions about it. And so I'm going to start a series of videos about coping with life with MCAS. Stick around. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so now. You might hit the bell so you get notified when I have new videos out. And if you like this video, give it a pause up, and we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so a lot of people have the idea that what I have are straight allergies, like food allergies, things like that. It's not exactly the case. I do have some food allergies, and I have some allergies to other things. However, I have a condition called MCAS, or Mast Cell Activation Disorder. Now, mast cells are a part of your body. They are cells within your body that are part of the immune system, and they are necessary. They play an important part when you are injured or when you are exposed to a dangerous trigger, say poison oak or bitten by an insect or something. They release what are called mediators, which react in terms of trying to help clear your body of that attacking substance. One of the substances they release is histamine. And you know, when you start sneezing, if you have an allergy attack or too much dust gets in your nose, that's a result of histamine being released in your body, and you are having an allergic reaction. Well, the problem is with mast cell activation disorder, your mast cells tend to think everything is attacking your body, and they will react accordingly, and they will throw you into reactions, what are essentially allergic reactions to substances that you are not actually allergic to. And it can be severe, it can be deadly, actually. So MCAS is basically your mast cells inappropriately releasing mediators that affect your body. And those reactions can be multivariate. There are, I believe, up to like 50 some symptoms you can have with MCAS. I have like about 35 of them. Now, there is another condition called mastocytosis, which you should not confuse with mast cell activation syndrome. While they are both mast cell issues, they are not the same thing. With mastocytosis, which my niece has, you have far too many mast cells and they misbehave. With mast cell activation syndrome, the mast cells just misbehave. You don't have an overload of them in your body. So it can get very, very difficult. Now, generally, they consider if you have two systems impacted by this, then you probably have mast cell activation syndrome. And those systems can be the skin, where you could get hives, you can get rashes, intense itching. I cannot tell you how bad the itching can get. Your eyes can be impacted. I've had swollen eyes before. I've had blood red eyes before. The nose can be impacted. Also, the heart and blood vessels, racing heartbeat can indicate inappropriate mast cell activity. The GI and stomach, the GI tract and the stomach issues there, vomiting, bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation, indigestion, those can all be part of MCAS. And the lungs, asthma, and ability to breathe properly. And also, these reactions can lead to anaphylaxis, which is why most of us with MCAS carry epi-pens and Benadryl at all times. I have epi-pens in my purse and on my bed nightstand. I have Benadryl in my purse, and this is the liquid Benadryl because it gets into the system faster. But I have it in my purse, I have it in my office, I have it on my nightstand, it's on my husband's nightstand, and it's in the bathroom and the kitchen. I should buy stock in Benadryl because I use so much of it. And I would like to not have to use that, but if I need to, I do. Now, there are medications that can help MCAS, but it's not curable. There's no cure for it. Sometimes it can go into a form of remission. And getting to that point, well, some people never do, some people do, and it can change in a moment's notice. So I take medications for it. I take low dose, and I'm going to butcher this name, I'm pretty sure, naltrexone, or maybe I won't, which is a drug that is often used for addicts in very high doses to block opiates in their body at an extremely low dose. For example, the dose an addict would take is 50 to 100 milligrams a day, I believe. The dose I take at the top level is 4.5 milligrams. And at a low dose, it acts as an anti-inflammatory and it helps with the joints. And it is thought to be somewhat of a mast cell stabilizer to a degree. There's other drugs that you can take depending on whether your system can handle them. I don't handle a lot of medications easily. There are not many I can take without side effects. I tried ketotifen, which is an antihistamine used for MCAS and mastocytosis, and it's a mast cell stabilizer, and it totally messed up my system really bad. I tried it twice. I took it for a week and thought I was going to go crazy on it. And then I tried again, and after 2 days, I realized it wasn't going to work. I wish it would, because it would be nice to have something that would help. I take a variety of supplements that are known for their antihistamine properties and their anti-inflammatory properties. Every day, I'm supposed to be taking vitamin D, biotin, CoQ10, a methylated super B complex, alpha lipoic acid. I take vitamin E, I take an adrenal cortex supplement, I take beta carotene because most vitamin A's have fish oil in them, and I can't have fish in any way. I take zinc, I take potassium, I take a magnesium calcium supplement, I take quercetin. Quercetin is an extremely powerful supplement, and I am supposed to take it 4 times a day because it's got a very short half-life in the body. I take chromium piconolate, I take berberine, I take holy basil, I take bitter melon, I take betaine HCl and pepsin in a capsule. And in my protein shakes, which I am supposed to take once a day because that's the only way I can get some of the supplements, I take more quercetin. I take that's where I take my magnesium calcium powder. I take acerola. I take blueberry powder. I take tart cherry powder. I take pomegranate powder, and I take acai berry powder. As far as prescription drugs, the LDN, and I am on a thyroid supplement, and I also take HCTZ, which is a very mild diuretic for off and on blood pressure issues, and also edema that happens in one of my feet because it was injured for years and it will swell up. So when I was talking about making my health planner the other day, and I mentioned there are 4 separate med supplements that I take throughout the day, there are various combinations of those, and then others in the protein shake. And so if I get everything every day, it helps a lot. But then comes the diet. I have often mentioned my limited diet. Well, given my particular reactions and my reactions to high histamine food and my problems with starches, if I were to eat only the foods that did not bother me, and I mean only, it would be poultry, as long as it's fresh, and it would be cucumbers and winter squash and sweet potatoes and apples and frozen raspberries and blackberries, and coconut. I can do coconut milk. I can do coconut um, oil. I cannot do coconut flour because it causes reactions. So that would be my entire diet, which I've considered going down to just to get my body under control again. When I'm in a flare, I try to really pull back to as safe of foods as I can. There are some other foods that I can eat. Rice doesn't bother me on a histamine issue level, but it makes my joints hurt. Um, Tapioca flour is not a problem in any way except the carbs are a little high for my blood sugar because the MCAS can often trigger off type 2 diabetes, and we're pretty much thinking that they went hand in hand. When the MCAS flared up, the diabetes flared up again. So they exacerbate each other. It's a never-ending balance beam. Um, I am trying intermittent fasting for it because that's supposed to help. The less food you have in your system, and put it this way, the more time you have without food in your system, the more time your system has to heal from that food, because even the act of eating will produce histamine in your body, and that can be a problem. My tolerance for histamine is very low. Now we talk about what's called a histamine bucket, and most people, oh, say you've got my water cup here. Say that most people can tolerate this much histamine per day without going into an allergic reaction. My histamine bucket would be about down here. So when it gets over about that level, boom, I'm into a reaction. As to what those reactions look like, can be everything from intense itching to where I feel like I'm going to tear my skin off, brain fog, confusion, restless leg syndrome. Oddly enough, that one comes in the middle of the night for me. If I have a reaction in the middle of the night, it's usually a stronger reaction than during the day because the body dumps histamine into you. The body has what's called a histamine dump naturally every night. And when that extra histamine flows into the body, if I've got too much already, it can trigger another reaction. So, yeah, the reactions at night are worse. But during nighttime reactions, it usually involves panic attacks. It involves restless leg syndrome. It can involve the itching again, um, confusion, being unable to unable to function per se. I may know I need Benadryl, but I may not be able to take it So I will have to wake Sam up, and luckily I'm usually coherent enough to do that, and he will get the Benadryl and give it to me. And if he gives it to me, I'll take it. Um, Again, this is a reason for liquid Benadryl. It gets in the system much faster. It's easier to take than a pill. So I also get a racing heart at sometimes, like especially in the morning when I first wake up. I get up and my heart is just pounding. Oh, let's see what else. Asthma. Um, and I react to certain fragrances and scents. Garlic can send me straight into a reaction, almost a I need the epi-pen reaction. I can't breathe, my throat will burn, I will hurt for days because of it, just being around the fumes of garlic. The few times Sam's actually slipped up and didn't realize he was eating something with garlic in it, he's had to sleep on the sofa for 3 or 4 days because I can smell it coming out of his uh, his pores. Um, Another thing about mast cell activation, I have a heightened sense of smell. I cannot eat leftovers unless it's fruit or grains, and then only for a day or two. If it's more than a day or two old, then it's too old. Um, and freezing for me does not help unless it is a fruit or a grain. Meat. I can smell when meat is too old for me if I smell it before it's cooked. Now, cooking does not take histamine out of a meat. It does not reduce histamine. However, it masks the smell, so I can't tell if it's too old. So every time we cook meat, which my body needs because it needs more protein, I have to smell it before it gets cooked. Poultry is much less problematic because it is sold quicker after it's killed and it's not usually aged. I find that I can eat poultry from a frozen state, take it out of the freezer, let it thaw out briefly, and then cook it right up. I can eat it that way, whereas 80% of the time when I thaw beef that's been in the freezer, I can't touch it, can't eat it. And it will smell like vinegar. There is a chemical in meat called cadaverine, and it rises as the histamine rises, and it smells just like vinegar to me. So if I smell a meat and I smell vinegar, it's too old. Luckily, Sam can eat it because it's not too old for most people. In fact, it probably tastes better to them. I miss aged beef. Aged beef tastes really good. I can't touch it. And I have to be very aware of where I buy my foods from. Now, processed foods are very problematic. Chips of any kind that are out of a bag, out of the store, will trigger a reaction. If I make chips in my air fryer, I can eat them. However, white potatoes make my feet hurt. Yes, they make the bottom of my feet hurt. It gets that specific. Certain foods can trigger off certain reactions in different parts of your body. It's really a complex issue, and I have been lucky that I've had an anaphylactic reaction once, but it didn't close my throat up. It made my face swell up horribly, and went to urgent care and was stuck on prednisone immediately. And the doctor was like, "Well, you ate something you're allergic to," and we couldn't figure out what it was, you know. And then I started becoming more and more reactive to more and more foods, including my favorite food, tomatoes. Unfortunately, they're very high in histamine. As far as my background with this, I'll talk about that, about how I came to realize that I had this, and how my doctor and I came to that point. I'll talk about that in another video. Um, But yeah, so that is what mast cell activation is. The mast cells in my body don't want to behave right, And nobody really knows what causes it. However, an interesting point, I have read on the news that some long haulers from the pandemic, from the virus, seem to be presenting with symptoms similar to mast cell activation disorder. And if so, I wish them the best, because it's not an easy condition to manage. And hell, I've had so much Benadryl in my life in the past few years that I now don't really like the taste of cherry anything, simply because it reminds me of Benadryl. Um, but I'm glad it's there, because it's one of the few things that can knock that reaction back from me. In terms of suggestions on how to deal with this, I prefer if you do not leave those. In fact, I will delete comments going, well, you should try this or that, because honestly, this is a complex disease and the reactions can be deadly. And I'm not really interested in someone telling me they think that their crystals will cure this. I'm a witch. If magic could cure it, I would have cured it by now. Um, Other than that, it's a chronic illness. There are days where I hurt so bad I can barely move around the house, because it's an inflammatory condition and my joints ache so bad. I am hoping the intermittent fasting will help, because there's some evidence that it does. And if I can lose some more weight, I lost a whole lot of weight a few years back. If I can lose some more, it would be good on my joints. So I'm aiming toward that. It's very difficult because I can't eat the low carb diet that I used to, because so many of those foods are off limits. But combination of a moderate carb combined with the intermittent fasting, I'm hoping to see some results and at least get this under control where I'm not flaring all the time. If you aren't conversant with the terminology, a flare is when you are having a surge of the problem. It's like when a period of time when the problem or reactions or whatever your chronic illness involves is flaring up. Anyway, so I hope that this explains a few things. If you are interested in learning more about this condition, there are some websites online that are helpful. And one of the books that has been recommended to me over and over, which I am reading now, is called Never Bet Against Occam. And it's by Lawrence B. Afrin, Dr. Lawrence Afrin. And I'm currently reading that to try and get a better handle on this. So that is, in a sense, what my mast cell activation disorder is like, and some very basic components of it. It's a very complex condition, very complex disease. It's a very complex syndrome. And I'm not a doctor, but I gave you the capsulized edition according to my life and how it's affecting me. And I will leave a few links below that may help. If you think that this may be a problem that you have, if you have reoccurring reactions, severe allergic reactions, but they can't find results on allergy tests because the doctors are saying, no, you're not allergic to anything. Well, sometimes it doesn't take an actual allergy to throw you into anaphylaxis. Thank you for being with me today, and I will be talking about what I eat in another video and how I cope with some of the ups and downs in this. And I think maybe I'll do that in one of the videos that Sam and I are going to make. So I will talk to you later. Bye-bye and take care.